Vegetarians, look away now. Turn away now. It's not safe to go back in the movie theatre. It's my review of Blood Diner from 1987, and this film is insane. So, if I'm trying to sum up the plot, which is very difficult, basically, two brothers, when they're young, their uncle is this insane stalker guy who goes around killing vegetarians, and he claims to be a chef. So we start off with them at home in a flashback, and their mother, who's a lovely mother, calls them shitheads. So that's the kind of film this is. This is the kind of people who are in this film. Says, where are you, shithead? I've run out of tampons. So she goes out, and there's this great news report on the TV that is reporting on this psycho killer who goes around killing people with cleavers, and it says, and the line is just genius. Says he's got a cleaver in one hand and he's holding his genitals in the others. So that really sets you up for the film. But the killer is their uncle, and he breaks into their house and he says, "You're gonna be great chefs one day." And he has this horrible, dark, dirty, but just so insane secret of how they're gonna do it. Moments later, he's shot by the police who have tracked him down, and the boys witness this. And then we fast forward, and all these years later, when they are grown up, these two nut jobs resurrect their uncle in this most insane of resurrections. They go to his grave, they actually remove his head, his skull, because it's a skeleton, and they resurrect it with this insane spell that they're reading from this oversized book. And they resurrect his skull, and his skull is talking to them. It looks like whatever that Quang out of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that. And it has eyes, and it's talking to them in this cheesy sort of voice, and it's giving them commands. And the brothers run a diner, the Blood Diner of the title, and they serve up bits of meat, but bits of human meat, in people's food. And one customer comments, "Oh, this is tasty, but I'm sure there's some meat in this." And they actually start liking it, but all the while they are going around killing people in the same fashion as their lovely uncle did. And they are they're building to this totally crazy ritual at the end, and that is that this revenge plot. So the cop who shot their uncle, he is commanding them. His spirit is to carry out this revenge plot, which involves his daughter and the whole ritual. But obviously he's instructing them to go around killing these people, and he's certainly not the nicest of people when it comes to women. This film has dated badly in that sense, but it's so insane, it's so silly, then you just go with it. It's so very campy. But the way they go around killing all these women, the plots are so elaborate. Now I will say, first of all, full marks for the opening, because you get this funny tongue-in-cheek little disclaimer, which is basically, I'll read it to you. It says, "All these mutilations bodily dismemberment and cannibal rituals were prepared by seasoned professionals. Please do not try these stunts at home, and what stunts they are indeed. But as I said, you get really funny, cheesy dialogue. You get these insane, elaborate kills. So at one point, so you've got a brain in the jar talking to them. So just process that for a moment, folks. And then you have these kills where they're going around killing these women for flesh, and they're so sort of convoluted and just insane. You just think, well, first of all, is this credible? And first of all, would these terribly sexist 80s film, but would these women go along with it? And isn't there easier ways to get victims? So, for example, one of the brothers bursts into like a Jim Roberts class with all these women who appear to be semi-naked for some reason, but whatever. I guess it's the attire. It's the 80s, folks. And he shoots them, but he's wearing a Nixon mask, so that's okay. That's a twist. I guess Nixon was the devil, and what he's doing is pretty devilish. So they have it, but you know, the spirit of their dead uncle is calling them like whores and what have you, and all these horrible names under the sun. There's this insane. They go to this club to pick up girls, and they decide they have to get the trashiest girls possible. So they find these two big sort of girls, or one of them's big anyway. But anyway, they take them back to their apartment, and like the brother who's kind of meant to be the more sort of charming type ladies man, he's with this girl and he starts covering her in like something like dough or mixture, like cooking mixture or something, and you just think, well, would she really put out like this? Would she really find it sexy? But she seems to really find this a turn on, and so they start to have sex, and then obviously things take a turn when he tries to then choke her and kill her and put her in like when he actually tries to kill her and she starts fighting back, and you get this really there's some really entertaining like kills and moments of gore that are just so silly, but he literally lops her head off with like, it's either a cleaver or like a frying pan, but it's a pretty good effect. And then just for cheesy, campy value, her head just goes flying, and the other brother's having sex with the other one, and he sees the head like land next to them, so then he's trying to hide the head from the other girl so that she doesn't cotton on. And then later on, there's you get various clips of them, you know, going after different victims. It's so in bad taste, some of these kills, but they're just so far the other way. You've just got to laugh, really. So there's a scene where one of them just keeps running over a fat guy repeatedly, and he just refuses to die. He just won't stay down, I guess. Hilarious, he's just so fat. So he just can't kill him. He has to keep running over him and running over him. They would never get away with this nowadays, but anyway, he keeps running over him until he finally dies. And then there's they go after this girl who's like having sex with her boyfriend randomly out on these rocks. Why they haven't gone to a motel room or somewhere a little more comfortable, I know, but it's late at night, they're out on these rocks, so she's practically naked or mostly naked. You do see a lot of flesh, a lot of half naked women in these films, folks. So the boyfriend is sort of knocked out, so he goes after her. And would you believe it, she's an expert karate champion because she fights back using karate randomly. He's swinging at her with the cleaver and she fights back using karate, and she even uses like a karate type sound. Would you even believe it? And what's awesome, what makes it even more perfect, is the fact that there's some really awful dubbing in this film, and they actually dub in like a karate sound, which this half-naked girl is supposed to be making. And eventually he gets her, she does die, and he cuts her into some little pieces. But I hope I'm not putting you off your dinner or anything, or your meal, but just her doing the karate, fighting back, is, boy did he pick the wrong girl to mess with. And at the same time, the whole case is being investigated by this classic 80s odd couple detectives. One of them looks like a cheap Magnum PI or like Scarface knockoff with like an Hawaiian shirt. And yeah, he just looks like this total douchebag. And he then has this partner who's the more sassy, tough female cop. She's sort of like a Janet Jackson type lookalike, but she's more the badass, and she's the one you're meant to have sympathy with. But they start off on the wrong foot, but they slowly come together. And she eventually is kind of the badass, the independent female character who saves the day. And it's almost like the film apologising, because it is pretty sexist throughout. I mean, there's some unsavoury like flashbacks involving the uncle and him kind of raping women, and so the film then has to say, sorry ladies, we're actually it's a really feminist film, because you've got this sassy Janet Jackson looking cop who eventually saves the day. She comes through, she's a real badass, and she doesn't take any shit from anyone. So yeah, there's all sorts of fantastic cheesy lines. There's one called "Eat This Fat Ass," and I should talk a bit about that sort of subplot. There's, believe it or not, a wrestling subplot. Yes, a wrestling subplot. So you have these scenes with them in a diner, and it turns out one of them wants to be a wrestler, because there's some subplot with like a local wrestler, and I didn't really get how that all worked in. But anyway, they have the wrestling on in the background in the diner, and he turns it up really loud, and it's like one of the brothers, the one who's meant to be a bit more like unbalanced, disturbed, he's really getting into this wrestling, and this like obnoxious character who doesn't like them keeps like running the brothers down, keeps mocking. He mocks wrestling basically, and he calls it a homo sport, because that's kind of one of the cliches of, one of the stereotypical things people who hate wrestling use against it. But yeah, it's the dumbest line. And of course, thick working class people like wrestling, don't forget. But yeah, he calls it like the sport for homos. And you get this wrestling on in the background, and the brother is just getting into it. But yeah, one of my favourite lines is the brother says to him, "Eat this fat ass," and the guy challenges him to an arm wrestling match, and he just jumps over the counter and slams his head and beats him up, and he just gets all hyper and turned on and excited about wrestling because he wants to be a wrestler himself. And there's this whole like insane wrestling match where he faces this local guy who's like, I guess it's still the 80s, so this sort of thing happened, but he was dressed as a Nazi, so he's like the heel in the match, and the brother's having this crazy match with him back and forth, and in the end he starts biting into him because of course he wants to admit. And the other brother, who's like the sort of smoother one, he's like taken a liking. Well, he hasn't taken a liking, but he's gone on a date with the cop, like the detective who shot the uncle, his daughter. So it's this just bonkers plot where from the grave the uncle is getting his revenge, and he said when he was being shot, he had the whereabouts to say, "If you ever have a daughter, I'm gonna come back and kill her." So that's the whole plot. So he takes her on the date to a wrestling match. This is the detective's daughter, and she gets all grossed out, and the crazy brother, spits blood, from the thing at her, and then the other one knocks her out. They take her off, and there's this whole big ceremony at the end, this crazy trippy ceremony in this bonkers cannibal club where you have jazz players just dressed as Nazis, you have cannibals feeding off each other, this whole trippy, insane sequence that just builds and builds, and it's there. Then they do the final ritual, this final to raise this some sort of like demon, some sort of vampire spirit. So they need like the daughter. And it's like this action scene back and forth with the cops trying to save them, and whatever a name, I can't even remember its name, but it finally comes to life and it starts killing people in the club and shooting at them, and the body sort of opens up and you can see its inside, and they're slowly it's slowly moving towards the daughter, and eventually the female cop saves the day, and her and her partner saves the daughter, although the partner almost gets killed, and eventually the two brothers are both killed. One of them ends up inside the actual the creature which they've brought to life. So it really challenges society for just this insane, trippy ending, this sort of gross out ending, and then there's a twist at the end where the thing is now out on the streets and this creepy guy picks it up, and obviously that's the twist, and then it's still out there, and hey, maybe they were hoping for a Blood Diner too, I don't know, but there you have it. Blood Diner, my latest horror review, a cheesy, campy cult, so bad it's good classic. Sorry about the gender politics, folks. Sorry to vegetarians as well. Maybe you shouldn't watch this movie. But it's an absolute blast. It's a trip. It's an experience. I have to say that. It's a lot of fun. It is so stupid, but so stupid it's entertaining. I had a good time. I'm not going to rate it. I think to rate such a film is kind of defeats the point, and where the hell would I start? But that's my latest horror movie review for the month, unlike anything else. And Blood Diner is on YouTube in all its bloody glory. So check it out, folks. Let me know what you think of Blood Diner. Any favourite lines, any favourite kills, and just how stupid is the plot, just how convoluted is it. But that's Blood Diner, and I'll be back with hopefully something a little more serious next time. Thanks for watching. Good night.